just registered. The second was working with corporate entities where we have shareholdings in to support them so that they can deliver value as well as the mandate for which they were established. And the third mandate, Chairman and distinguished members, is for MOFI would work with the government, the subnationals, as well as other international investment companies, as well as local investment companies like those in the capital market, to mobilize capital at scale to invest in priority sectors of the economy. And those areas that we have identified, those sectors that we consider to be very important, include housing. So what we call first things first. These are the fundamental things that every human being needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Housing, food in terms of agriculture, transportation, healthcare and infrastructure. So as part of that, Chairman and members, distinguished senators, with respect to what relates to your committee, we did a study of the housing sector over the last several decades and identified a number of things. One was clearly the fact that MOFI is a shareholder in two of those institutions that you referred to, Federal Mortgage Bank, Family Homes Funds. In fact, we're also shareholders in an MRC, which is the Mortgage Refinancing Company of Nigeria. And there were a couple of things that were very clear to us, which you are all aware of. But we looked at it from an investment perspective. The housing gap, which is over 20 million. But what is even more worrisome is the fact that we have less than 100,000 active mortgages within the entire sector. And if you do not have a mortgage scheme, it clearly means that you're not providing the financing structure for individuals to be able to own homes without having to pay for everything upfront. And that creates a lot of challenges for the entire sector. It makes it difficult for developers to feel confident enough to mobilize investments to develop houses without being sure that there will be off-takers. It also makes it difficult for even those that are in that sector, especially the mortgage institution, to write more mortgages. And we know from the work we do and our ownership in NMRC that there are not enough transactions for refinancing, which effectively creates a challenge for that institution that was set up specifically to raise money to refinance existing mortgages. And we identified a number of areas that we felt that as part of our mandate we can intervene in. One of those areas is leveraging on our status, our assets, and our position to raise financing at scale to inject into the sector. Financing from both public sector and private sector, so that we can make that liquidity available to that sector, especially on the demand side, providing low-cost mortgages, long-tenured, and at scale. That's one major objective for the MOFI Real Estate Investment Fund. The second aspect of it is on the supply side, to provide off-take guarantees to developers. So when developers want to invest in housing, or banks want to extend credit to developers, they are sure that there is a list of off-takers that are available because the mortgage financing is available. Those are two main objectives of the MOFI Real Estate Investment Fund. Where are we at the moment? We're able to get the necessary approvals that are required to establish that fund through the Securities and Exchange Commission. Because our financial system requires that if we're going to raise money from the public and other institutional investors, that fund needs to be approved by SEC. We've done that. And we established the fund, the initial part of it, for 250 billion naira out of 1 trillion naira. Because we strongly believe that as much as government is intervening and may want to intervene in the housing sector, government resources alone are not sufficient to address the challenges in the housing sector. We need to create policies and structures that will attract and crowd in capital from outside government, especially institutional investors, financial institutions, the capital market, as well as pension funds. It was on the basis of that that we established the MRIF, which is the Murphy Real Estate Investment Fund, as a platform that would leverage on federal government's resources and crowd in private sector funds, so that we have a larger pool of funds available for the sector, so we begin to address the challenges that we are facing, both on the demand side as well as the supply side. We've raised the first series for 150 billion. We are currently in the process of raising the next 100 billion from the private sector, so that the first set of mortgages will be written out of that 250 billion as part of the pilot. And the expectation is that the lessons learned from this would help us expand and widen the net of pool of funds that will be available for the housing sector through the MRIF. Distinguished Chairman and members of this committee, that's where we are on MRIF. It is our view that this intervention will help begin to address the issues that we are facing in the housing sector and thereby helping bridge that gap. Thank you very much, sirs.
Thank you very much,